Well, good evening. I'm Mike Walgas, principal here at Chisholm Trail Middle School, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to the 2015-16 school year, and more importantly, to our iPad initiative. I hope you enjoyed the video, Power Up, that the district put together and found some of that information important and also informative for our program and plans that we have in place. This time that I'm going to spend with you this evening is to walk you through some of the specific things that we'll be doing here at Chisholm Trail related to the iPad deployment and Digital Citizenship Day, and also some of our expectations and maybe even some recommendations for you as well as how to better make good use and quality use of the iPad that your student will be given. First, let's talk about some of the upcoming dates and important things that will happen. This coming Thursday, our students will have what's called iPad Deployment Day. What will be happening on this day, the students will go to their first hour class and they will for the first time get their iPad. It's a little bit of a tease because they're just going to get it and do a few things with it that first hour. It isn't going to be available for them to take home just yet. So in that first hour class, the students will be doing some things as changing their network passwords, changing their Apple ID passwords, and doing some of those types of things there. We will also be updating and downloading some of the things that will be a part of the iPad and making sure it is up to date and current with all of the necessary items that are there. At the end of that school day, again this Thursday, students will be going back to their first hour class just to double check that their iPad has completed all of those tasks and is ready for them to use for the Digital Citizenship Day, which will take place then on Friday. So again, jumping to Friday, which is Digital Citizenship Day. This is a day that will happen with all students across the district once they go through the iPad deployment process. What happens on Friday is that in each hour, the teacher will be going through lessons with the students. These lessons have been created and generated by our district. And what these lessons are about are some very basic tasks and tips, I guess, if you will, on how to use the iPad, but more importantly, how to use it safely and appropriately for school use. Again, it's very, very important to understand that this iPad is still the Olathe School District property. Anything that a student does on this iPad is, again, considered to be something done as a member or as a student at Chisholm Trail and as a student here in the Olathe School District. So it's important that they understand the significance of what they're doing on that iPad. My recommendation to you, and I will emphasize this again later on in this video, is that you treat this iPad as an educational tool and it's used in only that manner. It's not a gaming device, it's not a social networking device. It is truly an educational tool and should be used specifically for those educational items. Once the student has completed the Digital Citizenship Day on that Friday, the iPad will be coming home with them. In addition to the iPad, they will also be getting a charger and a cord to go with that. We would ask that you keep that charger and cord at home with your student at all times. There's no reason to bring it back to school, as we will have charging stations at school if by chance a student would forget to charge their iPad the night before. So again, on Friday, your student should be coming home with their iPad, the charging block, and the cord that goes with that. Again, we encourage you to keep that charging block and cord at home, but make sure your student does charge it each and every night. And we'll go through some of that with you a little bit later on in the video as well. Let's take a moment and talk about the iPad itself. This is the iPad in the case that the students will be bringing home on Friday, again, along with their charging cube and cord. As was mentioned in the district video, it's an iPad 2 Air. It's a great device, has all kinds of memory, and it'll be a great resource for our students. Again, you can see the case that is on this particular iPad. As was mentioned over and over in that video, please make sure that the students leave this in their case. The district's done a lot of research about what would be the best case to use in a school setting, and they believe this is a great case to have to protect the iPad as much as it possibly can. The iPad itself will have the student's name on the back of it. It will be on here with a barcode, as well as it'll be a district code on it as well. Again, keep in mind, this is district property. If for some reason this would become damaged or would be lost or have maybe even stolen, it is your responsibility to take care of those particular items. The district has set up some fees, if you will, associated with that, so when it's damaged potentially the first time or something happens to it, that there's a set fee that you would pay. And then the second time it's a little bit more, and so on. If by chance the iPad would be lost completely, then of course there is a charge to replace that iPad as well. So please keep that in mind. Another item that you will be receiving, and this will be emailed out to our parent community tomorrow, which will be on the 19th, is the Middle School Parent and Student Power Up Handbook. It's very, very important that once you receive this email that you sit down and take a moment just to review this. This goes through all kinds of items related to, again, appropriate and proper use of the iPad itself, to the different filtering systems that are on there, as well as it goes through, again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the fees associated if by chance the iPad would become damaged. We will be going through this in detail with our students once they do receive their iPad, but I would also encourage you to sit down and have that conversation with them as well, so that they understand the significance of owning an iPad, and more importantly, again, stress to them that this is an educational tool. Again, not a gaming device, not a social media device, but truly an educational tool. If by chance you do not have access to internet, we will have these available in the front office if you'd like to pick one up on your way out this evening, or just drop us an email. We will get one to your student or send it to you via mail if we need to do it in that fashion. As we wrap up our presentation and our video this evening, I wanted to take just a few moments to go over a few items that will be taking place here at Chisholm Trail, and also maybe some recommendations for you at home. First of all, here at Chisholm Trail, we're going to stress to our students over and over again that this is truly an educational tool. Again, as I've mentioned a number of times to you, it's not a gaming device, it's not a social media device. Our teachers were going to do a great job of implementing this when it is appropriate to in the classroom to make sure it is enhancing the educational experience for our students. I want to share with you something we're going to be doing here called zones. We're going to have green zones, yellow zones, and red zones, and those zones relate to when a student is able to use their iPad. For example, a green zone would be a classroom setting. As long as it's something that is appropriate for what the teacher is doing, by all means, we want the students to be using the iPads. Yellow zones, possibly in our hallways during passing periods. One thing we don't want students to do is be having their heads buried into their iPads and potentially drop it or get bumped by somebody and it falls and breaks. However, we do understand a student might need to check their iPad to see maybe what do I need to bring to my next hour's class, or what do I need to put into my agenda possibly. So there are some times, as long as it's for educational purposes, we're going to say it's okay to use this in passing periods, but for no other reasons. We are also going to have red zones where, again, use of the iPad is not permitted at all. Of course, there's some obvious locations like the locker room and also in the restrooms. But also we're going to designate our lunch and cafeteria as red zones as well. The reason for that being, we want students at lunchtime to be interacting and having conversations with their friends, not with their head buried in another technology device. A couple of just thoughts for you as you consider how you're going to take advantage and use this at home. Again, I would stress to the students over and over again that this is an educational device and should be used for school purposes only. Please emphasize to your students that they understand that anything that they do on this device is subject to Olathe School District policies and procedures. So it's very, very important that they do understand that. I would encourage you to check this on a regular basis. Wherever your student might be working on their schoolwork, I would make it sure that it's a location that you can check to make sure that, again, it's being used for school purposes only. And then the one last thing is I would make sure that at nighttime, this is not going up to their bed with them, that they're potentially staying on it late at night and doing those kinds of things. I would encourage you to charge this maybe down in the kitchen, or if you have an office location, someplace away from the place where the student's going to be bedding down each night. That way they can get a good night's rest, but also, again, they're not spending all their time on this particular tool. Very, very important. Please make sure your students do charge their device every night, because it will be used a lot during the school day, and we want to make sure it has a full charge when they do arrive. Again, as I said earlier, please leave those charging cables and cubes at home. If by chance a student's iPad isn't charged or is running out of a charge during the day, we will have some charging stations in each classroom for students to use. With that being said, I am so excited about this opportunity for our students and really the entire Chisholm Trail community. It's going to be a great device. It's going to truly change how we do education in general for our students. And it's going to be an enhancement for what we are able to provide for each and every one of our children. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate, one, to contact your teacher if it's something specific to what's taking place in the classroom with the use of the iPad, but also do not hesitate to call the administration. We would be glad to visit with you and assist in any way we can. We thank you so much. You're now going to continue on with your seventh hour presentation from your teacher, and then we will wrap up this evening at 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here, and as always, remember that it is great to be a Wildcat. Have a good evening.